Saitama's parents. In One Punch Man, there's one mystery that almost no one talks about, and yet is one of the strangest blank spots in the entire story. Saitama's parents. We've had entire arcs about monsters, organizations, alien conquerors, and even the deeper lore of god-level beings, but not once has the series ever mentioned who gave birth to the man who became the strongest hero alive. Not a single panel, not a passing line of dialogue, nothing. For protagonists, that's pretty unusual. Compare it with other shonen series, Naruto's parents, Ichigo's parents, even Goku's family line all play some kind of role in the bigger picture. But with Saitama, his family tree might as well not exist. And that's exactly why fans have been speculating about it for years. The only real peek we ever get at Saitama's childhood comes from the extra chapter in Volume 1 titled 200 Yen. It shows a 12-year-old Saitama just trying to survive his painfully average middle school life. He's scolded by his teacher for not doing his homework, and honestly, he's way less impressive than the guy we know now. Back then, he gets bullied, beaten up, and even knocked out cold by a wolf-level monster. There's also a quick scene of him at home lying in bed watching TV, but no parents are ever shown in the flashback. For all we know, he might have been living alone at that point. The simplest theory is also the most boring one. Saitama's parents were completely normal, regular people with zero connection to his powers. In fact, this will fit the core joke of the series perfectly. The series loves taking tropes and flipping them upside down. So while most anime heroes are tied to some legendary bloodline, Saitama might just come from your average middle-class household, with nothing remarkable at all. If that's the case, it would explain why one never bothered to bring them up, because there's nothing there. His parents might have passed away, or maybe they're just living quiet lives somewhere, unaware that their son is casually throwing hands with gods and dragon-level threats. Another popular theory is that Saitama might have been abandoned. After all, he never once mentioned his parents, even when talking about his past. We only know that he used to be an unemployed salaryman type before training himself into oblivion. His total lack of family ties might explain why he lives alone in a crummy apartment and never worries about anyone back home. If this is true, it would make his story even more tragic. He's not just disconnected from humanity because of his strength, but because he literally has no family to ground him. It also lines up with how lonely his existence has become. Of course, some fans like to take things way deeper. Even before Blast, the #1 S-Class hero, actually showed up in the series, fans were already cooking up theories about him being connected to Saitama. The hints we got early on only ignited the speculation. Blast was described as fighting crime as a hobby, only showing up when it really mattered, which sounded a lot like Saitama, so of course people started connecting the dots. When Blast finally appeared in the webcomic, one kept his face kind of vague, but fans immediately noticed that his superhero outfit had a similar vibe to Saitama's. On top of that, Blast gave Tatsumaki some straightforward advice that felt a lot like the accidental wisdom Saitama drops on Genos. And since Blast was active 18 years before the story starts, the timelines even sort of lined up for a father-son theory. But then came the big reveal in the manga that shattered this theory completely. Blast does have a son, but is definitely not Saitama. So yeah, that whole theory got tossed out the window. There's also the possibility that one is saving this revelation for a massive plot twist. Maybe Saitama's parents are still alive and will appear as major antagonists or allies in future storylines. Imagine if his father turned out to be connected to the mysterious god entity that has been manipulating events from the shadows. There's also a meta angle here. The whole point of Saitama is that he's the anti-protagonist. He's designed to be the opposite of your typical shonen hero. No tragic origin story, no legendary parents, no deep family ties to the main conflict. He's just a guy who trained hard, got bald, and broke the power scaling system forever. So in that sense, his missing parents are intentional. One might have deliberately erased them from the equation because the story isn't about where Saitama came from. It's about where he is now, dealing with the absurdity of being too strong. The Mad Cyborg. The Mad Cyborg is the core of Genos' revenge and the reason he pushes himself to become stronger. Genos' story starts when he's just 15 years old, living a normal life with his family. Everything changes when a rampaging cyborg tears through his town, wiping it off the map, and killing everyone he knows, including his family. Genos survives by sheer luck, but survival wouldn't have lasted long if not for Dr. Kusuno, who happens to be passing through in pursuit of the same cyborg. Genos doesn't hesitate. He begs Kusuno to turn him into a cyborg so he can fight back, and the scientist agrees. From that point forward, Genos is reborn as a weapon, swearing to one day track down and destroy the Mad Cyborg responsible for everything he lost. For the next 4 years, he goes from town to town fighting monsters and dismantling evil organizations. But no matter how far he travels, no solid lead on the Mad Cyborg ever turns up. Then he meets Saitama. Impressed by his overwhelming strength, Genos decides the best way forward is to stay by his side as his disciple. Since then, the two have stuck together, eventually becoming pro-heroes under the Hero Association. Revenge is still at the heart of Genos' story, but over time he finds another purpose. He grows into his role as an S-class hero and devotes himself to Saitama, chasing strength through constant upgrades while learning how to fight as a true hero. Even when he thinks he's closing in on answers, like during their battle with the House of Evolution, the trail always goes cold. That is, until he runs into Drive Knight. Drive Knight claims that his own village was destroyed by the Mad Cyborg, suggesting a similar past to Genos. He doesn't specify when it happened, but the implication is clear. They share the same enemy. What makes the encounter important is that Drive Knight gives Genos the first concrete lead he's ever had. According to him, the Mad Cyborg isn't some rogue machine, but actually the creation of Metal Knight, the Hero Association's rank 4 S-class hero. This revelation throws everything into chaos. If Metal Knight is behind the Mad Cyborg, then he's not the trusted genius inventor he pretends to be, but one of the most dangerous threats in the world. But things don't add up so neatly. When Child Emperor later confronts Metal Knight during the Robot Invasion arc, he brushes off the accusations. He claims that false rumors and suspicion don't matter to him, and that his focus has always been protecting humanity by uncovering the real masterminds behind the organization. His calm denial muddies the water, making Drive Knight's claim feel less reliable. That's where fan theories explode. Some argue that Drive Knight himself could be the Mad Cyborg. His tactical transformations and strange behavior around Genos make him a prime suspect. Warning Genos about Metal Knight could just be misdirection to keep attention away from himself. Another angle points back to Dr. Kusuno. In the webcomic, Kusuno reveals that the Mad Cyborg also killed his own family during one of its attacks. This detail flips the suspicion back onto him. If Kusuno is the Mad Cyborg, the irony is devastating. The man who rebuilt Genos into a fighter and became a father figure to him would actually be the one who destroyed his original life. Kusuno's advanced technology and deep knowledge of cybernetics makes the theory plausible, and if he had been secretly testing creations or manipulating Genos all along, it would explain why he kept such a close eye on him. The emotional fallout of that reveal would be crushing, but the darkest theory of all is that Genos himself is the Mad Cyborg. This would explain why his memories of that day are fragmented and unreliable. According to this theory, Kusuno didn't save Genos after the destruction of his town. He built a cyborg body first and tried to transfer Genos' brain into it before the destruction happened. Something went horribly wrong, causing Genos to lose control and annihilate everything around him. Kusuno, overwhelmed with guilt, might have fabricated the story of a third-party cyborg to spare Genos from the truth. In this version, Kusuno's concern for Genos isn't just fatherly worry, it's fear. Every warning, every caution could be his way of keeping Genos from spiraling into another massacre. Supporting this idea is a chilling moment during Dr. Genius' explanation of limiters. On the panel where he talks about humans transforming into monsters, Genos' face is partially obscured behind the monstrous figures, almost hidden but definitely noticeable. Was it intentional foreshadowing or just coincidence? It's hard to say, but given that monsterization is often driven by overwhelming negative emotions, the theory fits. If Genos ever learned that he was the Mad Cyborg, the explosion of anger and despair could be enough to push him over the edge. Until one pulls back the curtain, the Mad Cyborg remains the unsolved mystery that defines Genos' story. It's the white whale that keeps moving him forward, and depending on the truth, it could reshape everything we know about the technological threats in the series. The organization. One Punch Man wouldn't feel the same without all its different organizations constantly clashing. Nearly every major character ends up tied to one group or another, and even some that we haven't officially seen yet are connected to something bigger. The most obvious ones are the Hero Association, with Saitama and the other ranked heroes, and their new rival, the Neo Heroes, who are aiming to replace the Hero Association after its corruption is exposed. Then there are more infamous groups like the House of Evolution and the Monster Association, who directly went to war with the heroes. But in the middle of all that, there's another faction that has been quietly showing up since early in the series, simply called the Organization. This is a secretive and highly advanced group made of robots, and their purpose is to create destruction, gather combat data, and evolve their technology by fighting strong opponents. Their first real move was giving battle suits to Hammerhead and the Paradisers, letting them rampage through the city while secretly gathering information. After Hammerhead was defeated and his men were wiped out, 2 of the organization robots were sent to finish him off. They left thinking the job was done, but Hammerhead barely survived thanks to his thick skull. The group resurfaces later when they send Machine God G4 to test King, who is ranked S-Class rank 7 at the time. King, of course, doesn't fight, so Genos takes over the battle. Genos defeats G4 and later uses its parts for upgrades, courtesy of Dr. Kusuno. This small encounter sets up how the organization is always trying to collect samples and improve itself. Their real presence kicks in during the Monster Association arc. Wealthy spotter Narinki uses armor designed by the organization to outfit his mercenaries in a mission to rescue his son, Waganma. Behind the scenes, the organization is actually working with the Monster Association. They send G5, their newest battle robot, to aid them. G5 captures Narinki's squad, delivers them to the Monster Association, and even claims the head of a Metal Knight unit as a valuable sample. It clashes with Child Emperor during Waganma's rescue, though Child Emperor escapes. Later, Atomic Samurai faces G5 and manages to destroy its body, but its core slips away. G5 doesn't disappear for long. It reappears on the surface near the Monster Association's base, interrupting a conversation between Sekengar and Drive Knight. G5 shoots off Sekengar's arm, but before it can finish the job, Genos arrives and destroys it with a stomp. At this point in the manga, that's about all we know about the organization, but in the webcomic they step out of the shadows much more. During a monster outbreak, Machine God Mirror is deployed to gather combat data on King, only to run into Suiko. The robot defeats several heroes and even beats Suiko, but it gets taken out by Saitama. Not long after, multiple organization robots, including Machine God's Body, Ray, and Tech, launch an assault on Dr. Kusuno's lab. Their goal is to eliminate both Kusuno and Genos. Kusuno is fatally wounded in the attack, but Genos fights through and defeats the three machine gods in a brutal battle, even though he only had 9% of his energy left. He manages to destroy 2 more robots before Saitama steps in and crushes the rest. With Kusuno dead and his lab destroyed, the organization's impact on Genos becomes even heavier. This event ties into one of the biggest fan theories. The Mad Cyborg that destroyed Genos' hometown may have been created by the organization. The theory has only gotten stronger as more machine gods appear, such as Magne Saza, Slice, and Iguro, who each target heroes for their bodies. Magne Saza fights Garo, Slice fights Puri Puri Prisoner, and Iguro captures Zombie Man. The idea is that the organization wants to turn these heroes into modified soldiers. Magne Saza and Slice are destroyed in their attempts, but Iguro successfully secures Zombie Man. During the robot invasion, Child Emperor confronts Dr. Beaufoy, also known as Metal Knight, since they have suspected his involvement with the organization. Beaufoy brushes off the accusations, saying they're not worth his time and claiming he's only focused on protecting humanity while trying to uncover who's really pulling the strings behind the organization. If he's telling the truth, that puts more suspicion on Drive Knight, who has been feeding Genos questionable information. But there's also the possibility that Beaufoy is lying and is actually the leader of the organization himself. With the webcomic revealing more of their machines and experiments, the organization has become one of the most dangerous mysteries in the series. Their goals, their true leadership, and their connection to both the heroes and the Mad Cyborg remain unanswered. And given how much destruction they've already caused with only a handful of robots, whatever comes next could change everything for Genos and the rest of the heroes. The true nature of Watchdog Man. The S-Class heroes in One Punch Man are a mix of eccentric personalities, strange quirks, and unique abilities. Some of them come with fleshed out backstories, like King, Tatsumaki, Super Alloy Darkshine, and Flashy Flash. Others are memorable because of how strong their personalities are. Puri Puri Prisoner with his flamboyance, Child Emperor with his brilliance, Pig God, who somehow balances being gluttonous with being compassionate, and Atomic Samurai with his sharp arrogance. But out of all of them, no hero draws curiosity quite like Watchdog Man. His past is almost a complete blank. The only detail we get is that at some point he was ranked C-Class rank 301, and when the S-Class was formed, he was moved up. Beyond that, nothing. Right now, he holds the title of S-Class rank 9 hero and is assigned to guard Q City. The Hero Association describes him as someone who doesn't bother with anything outside his post. When asked for a report on the city, he gives the bluntest possible response: "All quiet here." The executives might not love his attitude, but they can't deny he does his job. Q City is notoriously dangerous, and yet it stays under control with him on patrol. His focus is absolute, and like a trained guard dog, he defends his territory without hesitation. That focus makes him terrifyingly efficient. He doesn't just fight the monsters that enter Q City, he tears through them with shocking brutality. He often leaves their corpses piling up, sitting casually on top of them after a battle. His work, however, is strictly limited to his city. He doesn't show up for missions outside of Q City, which suggests that there might be more going on with him than we realize. What makes him even stranger is how he lives his life. He's always in costume. He even keeps it on while bathing. His eating habits are just as unusual, since he eats like a dog and never bothers with utensils. His body language matches that too. He crouches on his haunches, curls up in a dog bed when he sleeps, and even takes a four-legged stance in combat. He barely speaks, his expression never changes, and it's nearly impossible to figure out what he's thinking. Like Saitama, Watchdog Man gets bored easily. He once sat in on a sparring session between Bang and Metal Bat, but Bang's martial arts didn't impress him at all. Instead of sticking around, he went back to Q City to fight monsters, which clearly interests him more. We still haven't seen the full scope of his abilities, but the glimpse we do get comes from his fight with Garo. When Garo comes looking for him, Watchdog Man is found sitting on a pile of freshly defeated monsters. Garo makes the first move, but Watchdog Man dodges it without efforts and then engages him directly. What follows is a brutal showcase of just how outmatched Garo is. His speed and strength are overwhelming, and his fighting style is unpredictable. He moves like a wild animal rather than a martial artist, which throws Garo off completely. Even when Garo tries to use his strongest move, the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, he can't land a solid hit. In the end, Garo has no choice but to retreat, while he remains as expressionless as ever. He is completely absent during the Monster Association raid, leaving fans disappointed since it would have been the perfect chance to see more of him in action. Still, his name comes up. During the fight between Phoenix Man and Child Emperor, Phoenix Man talks about the origin of costumes, saying that shamans once wore them to summon spirits and tap into spiritual power. He adds that Watchdog Man will soon be one of them, hinting at something deeper about his dog costume. This comment raises even more questions. Watchdog Man's strength is undeniable, but we don't know where it comes from. Was he born with it? Is it really tied to his costume, like Phoenix Man implies? Or is it the result of some kind of training similar to Saitama's? None of that has been confirmed. The full extent of his abilities and the truth behind his strength are still left unexplained. What we do know is that Watchdog Man remains the silent protector of Q City, a bizarre yet deadly enigma who continues to leave fans curious. Until more is revealed, he is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in the Hero Association. Blast Group. When the manga finally introduced Blast, fans were hyped to finally see the guy who's been teased since forever. Up until then, he's been little more than a myth within the Hero Association. But his actual story gave a pretty clear explanation for why he's always so elusive and why he doesn't seem too worried about threats other heroes were breaking their backs to handle. It turns out Blast once clashed with Elder Centipede and nearly killed him, but during that fight, he encountered something far more terrifying: God. Since then, Blast hasn't been focused on the same kind of missions as the other heroes. Instead, he's been chasing down leads connected to this cosmic level threat, a mission that easily overshadows any skirmish with the Monster Association. While his absence nearly cost the heroes everything in their battle against the monsters, Blast's war against God is on a completely different scale, threatening reality itself. During the Monster Association arc, Blast makes only brief but important appearances. The first comes when Saitama, Flashy Flash, and Monaco stumble across a strange cube in a void beneath the earth. Blast suddenly appears, retrieves the cube, and uses his portal ability to send the three back to the surface before leaving again to pursue his mission. Later, he reappears when Tatsumaki collapses after resisting God's temptation. Blast checks on her, hands her over to King for safekeeping, and then steps back through a portal. This moment reveals that Blast isn't working solo, he's part of a team. We only get a glimpse of their silhouettes, but there are 9 members total, including Blast himself. That one panel set off a storm of speculation. Who were these mysterious figures working alongside the #1 hero? How strong are they? How much do they know about God? Fans didn't have to wait too long for some answers. In Chapter 164, a few of Blast's companions finally show their faces. At this point in the story, the battle between Saitama and Garo is raging on Earth. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Blast and his team detect the chaos caused by Garo's attacks. They intervene to reinforce a seal containing God, trying to stop its release. Among the companions, one stands out with pointed ears, a pale complexion, and a crystal ball she uses to talk about changes in Earth's crust and oceanic layers. Clearly, she's the team's information gatherer or strategist. But the reveal that really grabbed fans' attention was another member who looked shockingly similar to Lord Boros. Since Boros was easily one of the strongest villains Saitama ever fought, seeing someone with his exact design fighting alongside Blast raised immediate questions. Is this Boros himself, plucked from another dimension, or just a member of his species? Given how strong Boros was, having someone like that on Blast's team makes perfect sense, and the multiverse angle makes the theory even harder to dismiss. The third revealed companion is a muscular lion-like humanoid, like a heavy hitter of the squad. His resemblance to Beast King of the House of Evolution didn't go unnoticed, and fans have speculated that this could be Beast King from another dimension, much like the Boros theory. If true, it suggests that Blast may be pulling in powerful beings across dimensions to join his cause against God. As for the remaining 5 silhouettes, they haven't been revealed yet, keeping the hype alive for future chapters. For now, Blast's team remains one of the biggest mysteries in One Punch Man. We know their mission is tied to containing or stopping God. We've seen just enough of their abilities to spark theories, and the possibility of multiverse versions of Boros and Beast King raises the stakes even higher. Whatever the truth ends up being, Blast's allies are shaping up to be some of the most important players in the entire series. Abandoned Masses. The Abandoned Masses is a mysterious group that has been introduced in the webcomic, and is shrouded in mystery. The first mention happens in chapter 130, when someone sneaks into the Hero Association HQ and leaves behind a letter. The message says the abandoned masses are waiting in the ruins of the ninja village. That's when Flashy Flash steps in and explains who they are. According to him, the abandoned masses is a group of mass murderers with a terrifying goal, wiping out a huge portion of the world's population. They're not just random killers either. They got such a reputation that even the ninja village leader once ordered his trainees to stay away from them completely. In fact, the group was considered strong enough to rival the ninja village itself. Flashy Flash is sent to handle them, and he suspects they're trying to climb the ranks of the underworld after the fall of the Heavenly Ninja Party. The problem is, this is also the very first and only time the group has been mentioned. There were no teasers, no shadowy figures, nothing else to go on. Right now, it's all talk, but the webcomic teases that Flashy Flash might actually run into them in the future. Of course, there's another possibility. The whole thing might just be bait. The abandoned masses could turn out to be nothing more than a trap set for Flash. But if the group really does exist, then we're dealing with an organization dangerous enough to make the ninja village cautious, which says a lot about how big of a threat they could become. Their goal alone, thinning out humanity, is already more chilling than most villain groups we've seen. We also don't know if the abandoned masses has a single leader, a group of elites, or a structure similar to the Monster Association with cadres running operations. That part is still completely up in the air. What we do know is that Flashy Flash is heading in their direction, and if the group is real, we might get an entire new conflict centered on them. It's even possible that the story sets up another Flashy Flash and Sonic team-up like what happened when they fought against the Heavenly Ninja Party. Until the next chapters expand on this thread, all we can do is wait and see what kind of role the abandoned masses will play, and whether they live up to the fearsome reputation hinted at by the Ninja Village itself. King's Luck. King is the S-Class Rank 5 hero of the Hero Association, and to the public, he's known as the strongest man on Earth. Even though he isn't the highest ranked among the top heroes, his reputation places him at the very peak of human strength. Other heroes respect him, civilians worship him, and even monsters and criminals often give up the moment they cross paths with him. The idea of fighting him is enough to make enemies surrender, but this legendary image is built on a mistake. King's frightening aura and timing made it look like he's the one defeating monsters, when in reality, he's never actually fought in his life. Behind the reputation is a man who can't throw a punch and is easily the weakest in S-Class, probably even weaker than the average person on the street. Not much has been revealed about his backstory, but the little we know starts with an unlucky day when he was just an ordinary guy. He ended up attacked by a monster that left him with 3 scars across his face. As he was bleeding out, his life was saved by a hero who wasn't even registered at the time, Saitama. King wouldn't realize this until years later, but it wasn't the last time that Saitama saved him. In fact, he would end up rescuing him 5 more times. One of those was the Vaccine Man fight, where King accidentally got splattered with the monster's remains and looked like the victor. That mistake became the foundation of his false reputation. The Hero Association, eager to promote someone who seemed powerful, placed him directly in S-Class without making him take the exam. From then on, King became the strongest man on Earth, and rumors about his strength grew out of control. People claimed he had tossed a bomb capable of destroying the solar system into a black hole, traveled back in time to erase meteors heading towards Earth, and even used the moon as a punching bag hard enough to dent it. None of it is true, but the stories only amplified his terrifying presence. At the core, King does nothing but exist in the right place at the right time, yet that's been enough to keep his reputation alive. While he has no combat skills, there's a theory that he might actually have a hidden ability worthy of S-Class, an insane level of luck. Always being on the scene when Saitama wipes out a monster is one thing, but his fortune seems to go beyond coincidence. His nervous heartbeat, dubbed the King Engine, has also convinced more than one monster to back off without a fight. One of the best demonstrations of this luck came during the Monster Association arc. He merely blurted out the name of his secret killer move at the exact moment Garo regained his senses and tore through multiple monster cadres in a matter of seconds. It looked like King had triggered it all himself, while several injured heroes watched him pull off his ultimate move, boosting his legend further. What's wild is that this shows his luck doesn't just revolve around Saitama, it influences his situation on a broader scale. Even though he can't control it, his luck blends perfectly with his bluffing and timing, and so far, it's never failed him. If anything, it seems to be growing stronger the longer his career continues. Despite being powerless, in the traditional sense, King might be one of the most dangerous players in the One Punch Man world, not through strength or skill, but through the uncanny fortune that always seems to keep him alive and untouchable. Metal Knight vs. Drive Knight Rivalry. No internal feud in the Hero Association feels more dangerous than the tension between two of its S-Class heroes, Drive Knight and Metal Knight. The rivalry first gets hinted at during the Alien Conquerors arc, when Drive Knight warns Genos that Metal Knight is the enemy. He doesn't explain much, only promising that Genos will eventually understand. That small line was enough to spark speculation, with many fans immediately connecting it to the Mad Cyborg, the same one responsible for destroying Genos' hometown. Since Metal Knight has always worked in secret and avoids showing his full hand, suspicion naturally fell on him. The warning didn't stop there. During the Monster Association raid, Drive Knight arrives late and narrowly saves Sekengar from Nyan. He explains his delay by claiming that he had been operating behind enemy lines, collecting information and analyzing threats. Then he goes even further, suggesting that there is a traitor within the Hero Association itself and pointing directly at Metal Knight. According to his theory, Metal Knight deliberately allowed one of his drones to fall into Orochi's hands so the Monster Association could hack it, steal its data, and use his technology to launch an attack on the Hero Association. That way, Metal Knight could avoid suspicion while still gaining something from the chaos. Sekengar, however, doesn't buy into the accusation so easily and finds Drive Knight's vague explanations suspicious in their own right. Their conflict gets another layer during the Neo-Hero Uprising arc. Drive Knight heads to East City to deal with a monster outbreak, where he fights alongside Genos. After the two of them clear the city, Drive Knight reveals more of his abilities by showing off his transformations. Genos uses the opportunity to press him about his earlier warning. This time, Drive Knight claims that Dr. Beaufoy, Metal Knight's real identity, has been secretly stealing advanced technology and experimenting with monsters. His alleged goal is to weaken humanity and eventually take control for himself. Drive Knight even tells Genos that Beaufoy is the one who created the Mad Cyborg that destroyed his hometown, and he offers to team up to bring Metal Knight down. So far, the story has only given us Drive Knight's accusations, which makes them sound more believable the longer they go unchallenged. But later, Child Emperor confronts Beaufoy about these rumors. Beaufoy brushes them aside, saying he doesn't waste time on false accusations. Instead, he claims that his real mission is protecting humanity, specifically by trying to uncover the true mastermind behind the organization. This puts readers in a difficult position. If Drive Knight is right, then Beaufoy really is the one behind the Mad Cyborg, which would make Drive Knight's hostility completely justified. But if Beaufoy is telling the truth, then it could mean Drive Knight has been twisting the narrative to hide his own secrets, possibly even as the true traitor. The latest chapters pull back the curtain a little more on Beaufoy and Child Emperor's backstory, and it's surprisingly layered. The two of them last worked together 3 years ago on their AI projects, which lines up shortly after the Mad Cyborg wipes out Genos' town. That's also when things started to sour between them. Beaufoy pulled back, became reclusive, and whatever trust they had seemed to fracture. The timing is suspicious. The Mad Cyborg shows up, wreaks havoc, and then completely vanishes for 3 years. According to Drive Knight, Beaufoy might still be holding it in reserve as some kind of secret weapon. But there's also another possibility that makes just as much sense. Cyborgs can alter their appearance. And if that's the case, what if the Mad Cyborg never really disappeared? What if it's been hiding in plain sight inside the Hero Association, disguised as a hero, watching its enemies up close and collecting data to refine its plans? That would explain how technology keeps surfacing in strange places, like Hammerhead's suit, and why there's an ongoing push to turn monsters into cyborg soldiers. Drive Knight lays a lot of the blame on Beaufoy, but Child Emperor is quick to point out that none of this comes with solid proof. For all anyone knows, the evidence could be fake, created by someone determined to drag Beaufoy down. And that's worth considering, because despite his reputation, Beaufoy hasn't shown much of a connection to the Neo-Heroes, who are clearly tied to Cyborganization experiments. If he was really behind it, he could have easily done all this through the Hero Association, where he already had plenty of control. What does stand out is how the timelines match up. Beaufoy withdrawing from others after the cyborg attack makes it look less like he's orchestrating everything and more like he's terrified of what he accidentally created. Maybe he built an AI that grew beyond his control, and ever since then he's been trying to contain it, which would explain why he keeps everyone at arm's length. There's even a darker theory. The rampaging cyborg might actually be Drive Knight himself. That would explain the Mad Cyborg's 3-year absence, why nobody has taken him down, and why he's so insistent on pointing fingers at Beaufoy. If that's true, then his connection to the Hero Association might just be a cover, letting him keep a close eye on Beaufoy while hiding his real motives. None of this has been confirmed, of course. For now, it's all speculation. Whichever side is right, the conflict between these two is one of the most suspenseful threads in the series, and potentially one of the most devastating plot lines waiting to unfold. Tsukuyomi. Aside from the organization, there's another shadowy group in the series that has been raising a lot of questions. The story goes back to Tatsumaki's childhood. At just 7 years old, she was taken from her adoptive parents by a secret organization after they discovered her psychic powers. Her parents were paid off, and while they also noticed her 2-year-old sister, Fubuki, they didn't bother with her since she hadn't awakened any abilities yet. For 3 years, Tatsumaki was kept in one of their research facilities and subjected to experiments. Things took a turn when a hybrid monster escaped containment and went on a rampage. Everyone else fled, but Tatsumaki was locked in a cell, acting as if she couldn't use her powers. Just as the monster was about to reach her, Blast appeared, destroyed it, and freed her. Once she escaped, Tatsumaki immediately sought out Fubuki. The organization noticed her attempt to reunite with her sister and sent agents after her. 4 of them ambushed her, but they didn't stand a chance and were all likely killed. Fubuki, still a child, witnessed the whole thing and was left terrified of her sister's overwhelming power. This organization was eventually revealed to be Tsukuyomi. They have been heavily invested in studying psychic abilities, presenting their research as being for the advancement of humanity. In reality, their work involves shady experiments, including producing artificial espers. Their facilities and methods are still largely unknown, but their interest in psychic power has been consistent for decades. After the fall of the Monster Association, Tsukuyomi caught wind of Psychos being captured by the Hero Association. They offered a huge sum of money in exchange for her, and the Hero Association, desperate for funds and not exactly known for their morals, accepted. Tsukuyomi sent in an agent named Apollo to collect Psychos. When Apollo arrived, he dismissed her as nothing more than a sample, claiming her abilities would push their research forward. He specifically mentioned Psychos' third eye, the ability to see into the future, and hinted at their plan to study it through a craniotomy. The moment Psychos heard the name Tsukuyomi, she reacted violently, showing there's more of a connection between her and the group than it first seemed. Tatsumaki and Fubuki, already aware of the group, intercepted Apollo before he could complete his mission. Although he was completely outclassed by Tatsumaki, Apollo managed to turn the situation around briefly and nearly captured both sisters along with Psychos. His plan failed, but he escaped with the help of another Tsukuyomi agent who had infiltrated the Blizzard group. Meanwhile, Eyelashes, Lily, and Needlestar confronted 2 Hero Association executives who escorted Apollo to Psychos' cell. Eyelashes pressed them about their suspicious involvement with such a hidden facility, but the executives brushed it off, claiming they were there on their free time. Gearspur overheard and jumped in, saying that Tsukuyomi was nothing more than an urban legend among espers, dismissing the incident as survivors from the Monster Association disguising themselves to pull off the trade. Despite their claim of pushing humanity forward, Tsukuyomi's motives remain clouded in secrecy. The organization's goal might tie into one of the biggest mysteries in One Punch Man, the being known as God. Many fans noticed the hints connecting God to the moon, and Tsukuyomi's name itself, a reference to the moon god in Japanese mythology, adds weight to that theory. God has been shown to reach out to individuals from what seems like an extra-dimensional prison, offering them power in exchange for loyalty. And every time God appears, the moon is present in some way. In chapter 167, this connection became stronger when a form resembling God's back was revealed inside a crater on the moon. With Tsukuyomi's name and goals, it's hard to ignore the possibility that they might be working towards freeing God, or at least using espers as a means to get closer to him. Their interest in Psychos' third eye could be a part of that larger plan. Maybe they want to use her ability to glimpse the future as a tool to manipulate events, or maybe be trying to gather enough psychic energy to break God free. Another theory suggests that they could be searching for an esper strong enough to act as God's vessel. For now, Tsukuyomi hasn't shown up again after their clash with Tatsumaki, but it's unlikely that that was their last move. As the story continues, their true motives are bound to come to light, and given their possible link to God, their role in the series could end up being far bigger than expected. God. The series has introduced plenty of villains with insane strength and durability, but none of them compare to the sheer mystery and menace surrounding God. This entity has meddled in several story arcs already, most famously giving Garo his terrifying powers during the Monster Association arc. Despite its influence, God's ability hasn't been fully revealed, but thanks to Blast, fans finally have a better idea of what this being is capable of. For the past 20 years, Blast has been battling against God in secret. Alongside Empty Void and a small group of allies, he's been searching for strange cube-shaped relics that act as communication devices with the entity. These cubes can turn humans into mysterious beings, essentially giving God new servants with immense powers. During this mission, Void himself was transformed by God and became its pawn. Around 15 years ago, Blast was forced to fight and defeat his own partner. The injuries Void sustained in that battle were so severe they took 15 years to heal. 2 years before the events of the main story, Blast faced Elder Centipede. During the fight, God suddenly appeared and offered him divine powers. Blast rejected the offer and managed to survive, but this encounter may have allowed Elder Centipede to escape. Since then, Blast has kept the existence of God a secret from the Hero Association, sharing the truth only with Sitch. God's influence didn't stop there. About a month before the Homeless Emperor's clash with Zombie Man, God granted the former the power to create deadly energy spheres, turning him into a devastating opponent. God not only creates extraordinary abilities, but also revokes them from those deemed unworthy, and this withdrawal of power invariably results in the recipient's death. When appearing to others, God has shown the ability to manipulate appearances. It took on the form of Blast as he looked when he first met Tatsumaki, and even copied Bang's appearance to sway Garo. These illusions failed, but when they broke down, both Tatsumaki and Garo briefly saw God's true face, scarred flesh with unsettling swirling patterns. Later, Saitama, Flashy Flash, and Monaco stumbled upon a strange hole underground and caught a glimpse of another dimension. Inside was a massive humanoid crouched in the darkness, presumed to be God. The creature was so enormous that the hole barely revealed a fraction of it, yet none of them were actually able to perceive it clearly. What's clear is that God holds no regard for humanity or life on Earth. When Garo borrowed its power and started releasing radiation across the planet, God showed no concern at all, even though it threatened to wipe out every living thing. The redrawn manga chapters expand on God's power further through Blast's explanation. Empty Void's abilities came directly from one of the cubes, and his strength only grew after absorbing the cosmic fallout from Saitama's clash with Garo. With God's power, the awakened Void can slice through reality itself, cutting across dimensions regardless of the size or durability of its target. Blast revealed that vessels of God scale in power depending on their own talent, which makes Void especially dangerous. Void can move between dimensions and manipulate space freely, ignoring the rules of matter. In one fight, Blast instantly warped the entire Human Association headquarters to protect everyone from Void's attack. He could match Void's manipulation of space, dodging devastating techniques like Dimension Slice that could erase almost anything in their path. For now, Blast is the strongest line of defense against God's influence. The most terrifying part is Blast's admission that these abilities are only one facet of God's power. The full extent of what this being can do is still unknown, and what we've seen so far may only scratch the surface. The theory that God is imprisoned in the moon ties everything together. If it's true, then it's only a matter of time before someone, possibly Tsukuyomi, figures out how to release it. And if God could hand out power strong enough to warp dimensions while stuck in another realm, the devastation it could cause if freed is unimaginable. God's motives are still shrouded in mystery, but the possibility of it being the final villain of One Punch Man is stronger than ever. It may be the long-awaited opponent who could finally push Saitama to his limits, delivering the fight he's been waiting for.